Consumers want to know farmers are protecting natural resources, clean air, and clean water for future generations. A new partnership between the Environmental Defense Fund and the National Corn Growers Association addresses these concerns.
Every planful step that we can make with the environmental community to improve soil health, to improve water quality, is a critical step, and we need to get it right each time.
We all deserve and want a safe, affordable food system, one that is good for the environment and good for farmers. And that's really the main purpose of this partnership.
Getting that different perspective, utilizing each other's staff and expertise to find those new programs is a great opportunity.
EDF calls agriculture one of the greatest sources of innovation in the country, noting the new partnership should help build on that reputation. If you'd like to know more, visit ncga.com or edf.org.
Thank you for joining us for our Agri-Pulse Washington Week in Review. I'm Spencer Chase, joined as always by Agri-Pulse Senior Editor Phil Brasher, discussing the week that was, agriculturally speaking, in Washington, D.C. And there was some big news this week. We got the news we've been waiting for quite a while. All of you have been waiting for it as well. The Farm Bill negotiators, the House and Senate Committee ag leaders, announced an agreement in principle this week on Farm Bill, but still some specifics yet to be ironed out. But Phil, looking at the big picture, aside from you being able to catch on some missed sleep, as you and a number of House and Senate ag staffers, aside from that, what does this agreement in principle mean?
Well, I think the big picture is we're going to have a bill that's going to look very much like the 2014 Farm Bill. I remind you that Senate Agriculture Chairman Pat Roberts had said a long time ago that this was going to be evolutionary, not revolutionary, that they were not going to make, he did not want to make major changes in the 2014 Farm Bill. And from what we know, that's certainly the case. Now, we don't know a lot of the details yet in terms of numbers. Some exceptions, like we know the Conservation Reserve Program will be increased to 27 million acres. Sources tell us, some specifics in terms of how the eligibility rules came out in the commodity programs. We know there'll be a allowance for a yield update for some producers who've had drought or other challenges to increase their yields for calculating price loss coverage payments, that sort of thing. But by and large, the conservation, the commodity programs across the board are going to largely stay intact.
Mm-hmm. So as Phil mentioned, we have a lot of things right now. We have an agreement. We have an idea of what the bill might look like. We don't have a ton in the direction of specifics, and that's because we don't have bill text at this point, and we're expecting that soon. And so I guess the bigger, broader question I'm looking at here, Phil, is what does the schedule look like going forward as we see bill text and potential floor consideration?
Right now, talking to congressional leaders, it looks like they're hoping to have the bill out on Monday, so we'll get some of the more details in terms of the very granular stuff, the sort of stuff that our viewers really need to know for their own business. Get that on Monday. The plan is to get the conference report, which is this legislation, signed by the conference committee members on Tuesday. That kicks off the process of considering it on the House and Senate floor. And the goal is to have it on the House and Senate floor later in the week, next week. So we could very well have a final 2018 Farm Bill on its way to President Trump by a week from today.
So obviously that's going to be a developing story to follow at agripulse.com throughout the week. Another thing that we're going to encourage you to follow is the potential for a government shutdown here a week from today. Government funding set to expire on December 7th. And Phil, at this point, I know a lot of our attention has been focused on the Farm Bill, but we've been paying attention to the appropriations process as well. What do we know at this point in terms of whether or not that government shutdown is something that could be looming around the corner?
Well, let's be clear, it would not be a government-wide shutdown,
Right.
even if there were one, because a number of the departments already got their funding back in September for fiscal 2019, which started October 1st. A couple of the departments, several of the departments that we care about and follow closely, including USDA, EPA, FDA, the Department of the Interior, don't have their funding yet. They don't have their FY19 spending levels yet. They're operating on a continuing resolution that runs out, and this is what you're talking about, next Friday. Something is going to have to happen. The negotiations right now really focus on this, the president's demands for $5 billion for a border wall. Democrats are offering $1.6 billion. Republicans are talking about the $5 billion over 2 years, which is not acceptable to the president right now, not acceptable to conservatives, some conservatives here on the Hill. So we just don't know where that's the big issue in terms of whether we get another stopgap bill possibly next Friday. It doesn't seem likely that we'll get this settled by next Friday, but they will have to do something to keep departments like the USDA funded beyond next Friday for beyond next week.
So that's obviously something to follow as well. It should be a pretty action-packed week next week. But before we let you go this week, do want to mention something that happened here today. That is the Environmental Protection Agency rolled out the renewable volume obligations under the Renewable Fuel Standard, setting the 15 billion gallon conventional RVO for the fuel typically viewed as corn ethanol. That's obviously something a lot of renewable fuel groups are watching for. Also an increase in the advanced biofuel and the cellulosic biofuel categories. What the EPA did not do is issue any kind of language in there to contain a mechanism to reallocate gallons waived through small refinery exemptions. I've seen a number of statements already, a number of biofuel groups less than pleased with that. Also a number of refiner groups less than pleased that they have to comply with the RFS in the first place. And so the EPA has managed, as they are known to do, they have managed to upset both communities with this rollout, but something they were required by law to do, roll out these volumes by the end of November. They've done that. This is, I believe, the fourth year in a row there's been on-time volume obligations released going back into the Obama administration, when of course there was a multi-year delay on that subject. And so something to watch there as they decide, EPA decides how they want to handle these small refinery exemptions going forward.
We should also mention, while we're on the subject of biofuels, that another piece of unfinished business,
of course,
is the tax credit for biodiesel at $1 a gallon tax credit that expired. It's not in effect this year. The industry is waiting, eagerly waiting for Congress to revive that. Now, there was a plan that the House Republicans brought out, this big tax bill they brought out this week, that would have extended that and then phased down that biodiesel tax credit over a 6-year period. That bill was supposed to be on the House floor today. The Republican leadership wound up pulling it down because they didn't have the votes. It's a party line issue. Democrats don't want to support the bill, not necessarily because of the tax extender issues and biodiesel, but because of some other provisions that are in there, mainly in part some fixes to the 2017 tax bill. So Republicans hope to bring that bill back on the House floor next week, but it's not clear it's going to get anywhere in the Senate yet. Democrats have a lot of problems with it over there, and they may actually want to keep these expired tax provisions, like the one for biodiesel, up in the air so they can attach it to something next year when Democrats are in control of the House. So big issue for the biodiesel industry.
Yeah, for sure. And folks, to be honest with you, we could have had a half-hour week in review video with you this week.
Let's talk about the new NAFTA.
Yeah, there's all kinds of other rabbit holes we could have dove down this week. We just don't have time, and quite frankly, we love you, but we don't think you're going to sit around and watch that video. So I would encourage you to take a little bit of time. If they're the issues that you are particularly passionate about, we've probably got an article on Agri-Pulse.com for you to read at this point, where we get in a little bit more of the minutia and the specifics that you all obviously care so deeply about. But in terms of the 30,000-foot view of ag policy that happened this week, I think that's going to do it for what we're going to be able to get to you at this point. But for Phil Brasher, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.